Before matter took shape, before form knew itself, there was vibration, there was frequency, there was the spoken word. And hidden within that word lives a force so precise, so absolute, that when you master it, the quantum field has no choice but to collapse in your favor. This is Logos. This is the secret architecture behind all manifestation. You've been speaking your entire life. But what if I told you that 99% of humanity is using language in reverse? That every casual sentence, every unconscious phrase is broadcasting instructions to the field, and the field is listening with perfect accuracy, arranging your experience to match the vibration you're transmitting. Most people think words are just sounds, neutral, harmless. But here's what changes everything. Your voice is not commentary on reality. Your voice is the sculptor of reality itself. Every syllable you speak carries a frequency that ripples through the quantum substrate, imprinting patterns into the zero-point field where all possibilities exist simultaneously. When you speak, you're not describing what is, you're declaring what will be. Ancient wisdom traditions understood this. They didn't write prayers on paper for decoration. They carved mantras into stone because they knew. Sound creates form. Frequency shapes matter. The ancients recognized that a single word, spoken with coherent intention, could activate forces that modern science is only beginning to measure. They protected this knowledge because they understood its power. Creation wasn't something that happened once in some distant past. Creation is happening now, in this moment, through the words moving through your consciousness and out of your mouth. You carry this same creative capacity. But here's where most people lose their power. You've been conditioned to believe that your thoughts are private, that your inner dialogue doesn't matter as long as you don't say it out loud. That's the illusion. Every thought you think is already a declaration to the field. Every internal narrative you repeat is a seed planted in the fertile ground of consciousness. Some of those seeds blossom into joy, others into suffering, but none of them are ignored. The field responds with absolute fidelity to what you plant. Those who've mastered their reality didn't start by changing their circumstances. They started by changing their speech. They learned to speak as creators, not as victims. They chose words that aligned with the life they intended to inhabit, not the life they were currently experiencing. For them, silence became sacred. Language became intentional. Nothing was uttered without awareness of its creative power. Right now, you're standing at that same threshold. You're about to discover how to speak with purpose, how to align your voice with quantum mechanics, and how to transform your words into instruments of conscious manifestation. But first, you need to hear something clearly. Take a moment and comment below with this phrase: I speak with conscious power. This isn't just engagement. This is you making a declaration to the quantum field itself. You're interrupting the loop. You're signaling that you're ready to step into a new frequency of creation. So pause the video right now. Comment those words. Let that declaration anchor itself in the field before we go deeper. Let me tell you about someone we'll call Millie. She lived in a quiet town where water met sky, and every morning she would stand before her mirror, looking at her reflection. But what she saw wasn't just her physical image. She saw something deeper, a truth she'd been avoiding, an endless stream of self-diminishing thoughts flowing through her mind like a contaminated river. "I'm not quite ready," she would whisper, her voice barely audible. Perhaps I'm not qualified enough for what I want. She thought these were just thoughts, harmless mental commentary. But here's what she didn't understand. Those weren't thoughts. Those were incantations. Those were spells being cast into the quantum field, collapsing the wave function of infinite possibility into a single narrow reality that matched her spoken frequency. The universe doesn't differentiate between your internal dialogue and your external speech. It hears both with the same precision. Before you can transform the words you use consciously, you must become attuned to the ones you're already using unconsciously. Think of it like this: a musician learning to hear individual notes in a complex symphony. You need to develop that same sensitivity to your inner dialogue. Your thoughts aren't random neural firings. They follow patterns. Patterns established through years, sometimes decades, of unconscious repetition. And those patterns are running your life right now. In that same town lived Henry. His small shop housed timepieces, dozens of them, each one ticking in synchronized rhythm. The sound filled the space like overlapping heartbeats, creating a field of temporal coherence. Every morning, Henry would approach his favorite grandfather clock, place his hand on the wooden frame, and speak directly to it. "We create beauty," he would say with quiet certainty. "We bring order from chaos." At first, his neighbors thought he'd lost his mind, talking to clocks. But as his business flourished, as his life began blooming with unexpected blessings that seemed to arrive from nowhere, they started to wonder. What did Henry know that they didn't? Henry had discovered what quantum physicists are now confirming through double-slit experiments and observer effect studies. Matter itself responds to consciousness. Not just human consciousness observing particles, but human consciousness speaking to matter, infusing it with intention. The pendulums in his shop didn't just swing mechanically. They swung to the rhythm of his belief system. Each tick and tock amplified his spoken truth, creating a resonance field that the quantum substrate had no choice but to organize around. His success wasn't luck. It wasn't even hard work. It was the natural result of aligning his speech with the creative force that governs quantum reality. Here's what most people miss. The voice you use when speaking to yourself carries more manifestation power than any external force acting upon you. When you begin to listen, truly listen to your inner dialogue, you take the first step toward conscious creation. Each thought is a seed. Each word is a quantum instruction. Each belief is a blueprint that the field uses to construct your experience. So here's a practice, something you can start tonight. As the sun sets, find a quiet space where you won't be disturbed. Speak your name aloud 3 times, letting each repetition carry more warmth, more love than the last. Then describe yourself not as you currently are, but as the quantum field sees you. Blessed, capable, infinitely potential. Say it out loud. I am. And then your name. And I move in harmony with life's abundance. Let each word rise from a place of serene knowing, not desperate hoping. Continue this practice until you feel the shift. You'll know it when it happens. There's a moment when doubt dissolves and quiet certainty takes its place. That's the frequency of coherent manifestation. Henry understood something else about this principle. Through years of watching the precise movements of his timepieces, he discovered that rhythm and repetition held power. Not mindless repetition, conscious repetition. He would stand among his beloved clocks each morning, synchronizing his whispered affirmations with their steady beat. I attract abundance, he would say in time with the ticking. Success flows naturally through me. The rhythm created coherence. The coherence created a standing wave in the field, and that standing wave began attracting circumstances that matched its frequency. Soon, his small shop became known throughout the region. Collectors would travel from distant cities, seemingly guided by an invisible hand. They couldn't explain why they felt compelled to visit Henry's shop specifically. But we understand now. They were responding to the coherent field he'd created through his spoken declarations. Yet across town, another story was unfolding, a different frequency being broadcast. Saadeh owned a bakery. Every morning, the air filled with the aroma of fresh bread, warm and inviting. But beneath that sweetness lay a bitter vibration, a frequency of limitation. "It's so hard to make it in this business," she would murmur while kneading dough, speaking directly into the very substance she was creating. "Other bakeries always do better than mine." Each utterance wove itself into the fabric of her reality like yeast working through dough. But these words didn't make things rise. They made things collapse. The law of attraction, which is really just quantum field coherence, responds not to what you want. It responds to what you consistently declare as truth. Your words create standing waves in the field, interference patterns that either welcome or repel the experiences you claim to desire. When you speak of limitation, the field can only reflect limitation back. It's not being cruel. It's not punishing you. It's simply mirroring the frequency you're broadcasting. When you speak of abundance, channels of prosperity begin to open because you've created a resonance pattern that aligns with abundant timelines in the quantum probability space. There was a wandering poet named Byron who understood this principle with elegant simplicity. Rising with the sun each morning, he would declare with quiet certainty, "Every door opens easily for me." He didn't shout it. He didn't force it. He didn't repeat it anxiously like a desperate mantra. He simply stated it as naturally as commenting on the weather, speaking at once with complete conviction. Soon, invitations appeared from unexpected sources. Strangers offered opportunities that seemed to materialize from thin air. Places once closed became accessible. The field had no choice but to arrange itself according to his sustained declaration because he'd created a coherent frequency pattern with no contradictory static. This ancient wisdom teaches something modern science is rediscovering. Your inner dialogue creates your outer reality, not metaphorically, literally. The words you speak to yourself are quantum seeds planted in the fertile soil of the zero-point field. They will grow exactly what you've planted. Nothing more, nothing less, no exceptions. So here's another practice. Choose a door in your home or workplace, any door. Each morning, stand before it and speak these words with gentle authority. The universe opens for me. Not, I hope the universe opens for me. Not, maybe the universe will open for me. The universe opens for me. Present tense, stated fact. Let the statement resonate in your chest. Feel its truth in your bones, not as wishful thinking, but as recognition of a quantum law that's always been operating. Continue until you sense a shift, a subtle expansion, as if the very air around you has become more permeable to your intentions. This isn't mere repetition. This is the activation of a universal law that has existed since the first quantum fluctuation gave birth to space-time. The whispers of doubt that filled Saad's bakery reveal something crucial. Your words don't just affect your psychology, they shape the very substance of reality. Like water taking the form of its container, the quantum field molds itself to match your innermost dialogue. Not far from Sade's shop lived Clara. She tended a garden, and her roses bore witness to this principle in ways that should make every scientist stop and reconsider what they think they know about consciousness and matter. Each morning, as she moved through her garden, her words fell like shadows upon the soil. "You'll never bloom properly. Here," she would mutter to her roses. "I don't have the right touch for this." Day after day, the roses heard these utterances, and day after day, they began to mirror her expectations. Their stems grew weak, their blooms hesitant, as if they had absorbed her lack of faith through their very roots, through some mechanism that biology textbooks don't yet acknowledge, but that quantum biology is beginning to measure. The universe speaks the language of vibration. Every word you utter sends ripples through the fabric of creation, through what physicists call the quantum foam. Your speech carries the power to either nurture or diminish the life force in all things. When you declare limitation, even the most fertile soil seems to grow barren because you've collapsed the wave function toward outcomes that match your spoken frequency. When you speak with faith, with coherent intention, even stones seem to soften because matter itself responds to consciousness. Consider Lyle, who walked the town's mail route for 30 years. While others saw tedium in their daily tasks, he transformed his rounds into a celebration of conscious creation. "What a glorious morning to deliver blessings," he would sing to his mailbag, treating each letter as a vessel of intentional energy. Even on the grayest days, his route seemed touched by an inner light. Other mail carriers would complain about the rain, but somehow the rain appeared to dance around Lyle. The streets he walked took on a peculiar gleam, as if polished by his cheerful declarations. His secret lay not in denial of what is. It lay in his conscious choice to speak to reality differently. Each step became a prayer, each delivery an offering. He understood something most people never discover. Joy doesn't need a reason. It doesn't need permission from circumstances. It simply needs your voice giving it form through language. Through his song-filled journey, Lyle demonstrated that when you speak to life as a friend, as a co-creative partner, it befriends you in return. This isn't positive thinking. This is quantum mechanics applied to consciousness. The observer doesn't just affect the observed. The observer creates the observed through the frequency of their attention and intention. Ancient wisdom teaches something that sounds mystical but is actually scientific. All of creation listens. The walls of your home, the tools in your hands, the very air you breathe, all of it exists in a state of quantum superposition until you collapse the wave function through your observation and declaration. Everything awaits your acknowledgement of its sacred partnership in your journey. Here's a practice that will seem strange at first, but becomes natural once you understand the science. As you move through your day, speak to every small task with love and recognition. Greet your morning coffee as sacred warmth that nourishes your spirit, not as a joke, as a genuine quantum declaration. Address your path as a beautiful journey unfolding before you. Thank your chair for supporting you. Thank your pen for sharing your thoughts. Thank your floor for holding you steady. Let each ordinary moment become extraordinary through your conscious blessing. Watch what happens. The simplest details of your life will begin to hum with newfound vitality, responding to your voice like flowers turning toward the sun. Not because they've suddenly become sentient in the way we normally think of sentience, But because consciousness and matter are not separate things, they're different expressions of the same quantum field. In the quiet moments before dawn, when shadows still dance with uncertainty, your voice holds the power to shape the coming light. This truth echoes through the story of Nora, whose steps faltered at the edge of an aging bridge spanning a misty gorge. Her heart fluttered like autumn leaves caught in wind as she gazed across the weathered planks. The old crossing had carried countless travelers safely to the other side, yet in that moment, it seemed to sway with her own hesitation. Standing before her room's mirror that morning, Nora had discovered something ancient. The voice that speaks to one's reflection doesn't just stay in the room. It ripples through reality itself, collapsing probability waves in alignment with its frequency. "You are steady as the earth," she whispered to her image, the words flowing like warm honey through her nervous system. "Your feet know the way." As these gentle affirmations filled the air, something shifted within her. Not just psychologically, physiologically. Her trembling hands became still, replaced by a calm certainty that flowed from her core. When she finally stepped onto that bridge, her movements carried the same assurance as her words. Because the words had already done their work. They'd collapsed the quantum probability field toward timelines where she moved with confidence. The universe responds not to the volume of your declarations. It responds to their resonance with coherent truth. When you speak from that still place within, from a place of genuine conviction rather than desperate hope, reality aligns with your inner knowing. This is the sacred science of sound, the way your words weave pathways through the fabric of quantum existence. Walter, an apprentice painter, understood this principle in his own way. His hand would shake before each brushstroke, contaminating his work with uncertainty, until one day, he began whispering to his hand with tender conviction, "You already know how to do this." Just those words, simple, quiet, certain. The shaking steadied. The masterpiece that flowed from his brush seemed to paint itself, each stroke guided by an inner wisdom his voice had awakened, had brought from quantum potential into physical manifestation. His story reveals how your speech can transform trembling uncertainty into flowing grace. When you address yourself with the gentleness of a trusted guide, your nervous system responds as surely as a flower turns toward light. The vibration of your words becomes a bridge between quantum intention and physical manifestation. The ancient masters taught something crucial. Fear doesn't dissolve through force. It dissolves through the subtle power of aligned speech. When you speak to yourself as though addressing a beloved friend, your nervous system responds to the frequency of comfort in your voice. This is not mere encouragement. This is the activation of your natural state of quantum coherence. Here's a practice. Before facing any challenge that stirs uncertainty within you, find a quiet moment to speak to your body. Address each part with tender attention. "My hands, you are steady and sure." Speak directly to them. "My feet, you move with grace." "My heart, you beat with calm strength." Let your voice be soft yet certain, like a stream flowing over smooth stones. The power lies not in volume, but in the genuine warmth of your tone, the coherent frequency you're broadcasting. Continue until you feel your entire being settle into peaceful alignment, ready to move through whatever awaits with natural confidence. This works because your body is not separate from your consciousness. Every cell has receptor sites for your words, for the frequency patterns they carry. In a small cottage by the sea, Elsie sat at her window day after day, watching clouds drift lazily across the afternoon sky. And day after day, she voiced her frustrations to the empty air. "Nothing ever moves quickly enough," she would complain to no one in particular. "Time drags endlessly here." With each utterance, the universe seemed to slow its pace, matching her words with uncanny precision. Not because the universe was listening to her words as language, but because her words carried a frequency, and that frequency was collapsing probability waves toward timelines that matched its vibration. The law of attraction, which is really quantum field coherence, operates with perfect fidelity. Not as we wish it would, but as we speak it into being. Your words are not descriptions of reality, they're instructions to the infinite. When you declare delay, you command it into existence through quantum collapse. When you speak of lack, you draw more emptiness toward you because you're tuning your consciousness to frequencies that resonate with lack. This is not punishment. This is pure physics. The quantum field simply agrees with your assessment, with your sustained frequency pattern. Consider how Louis, who had spent decades at sea, discovered this truth through bitter experience. At first, he cursed every contrary wind. He railed against each opposing current, and his journeys grew increasingly difficult, as though the elements conspired to prove him right. Because in a quantum sense, they were. His words were creating coherence around difficult timelines. Then one storm-dark night, exhausted by his own resistance, he chose differently. "Blessed be this wind," he whispered to the gale, genuinely meaning it, "for teaching me patience. Blessed be these waves that strengthen my resolve." Within days, his ship found favorable winds. The storms that once hindered now hastened his passage. He had stumbled upon the ancient axiom, the quantum truth. What you bless blesses you in return, not through supernatural intervention, but through field coherence. This principle flows through all of existence. Your complaints are prayers in reverse, each one a seed planted in the fertile soil of universal law, collapsing probability waves toward what you're declaring. When you say nothing works, you invoke a quantum pattern that ensures nothing will. When you proclaim everything takes forever, you command time itself, or rather your perception and experience of time, to stretch and delay. But within this same law lies your liberation. Every complaint can be transformed into its opposite. Every declaration of lack can become an affirmation of abundance. The power that now works against you will work for you with equal vigor when you change your speech, when you shift your frequency. The universe never argues. It simply mirrors back the energy of your words with perfect quantum accuracy. Your role is not to fight this law, it's to align with it. Not to resist delay, but to bless the timing. Not to curse the darkness, but to speak light into being. Here's a practice. Choose one situation that typically draws your complaint. Stand before it with new awareness. Take the very words you would use to resist it and transform them into blessing. If you would say, "This always takes too long," declare instead, "I bless this perfect timing." If you would say, "Nothing ever works out," affirm, "Everything works together for my highest good." Speak this new declaration 7 times, feeling each repetition dissolve the old pattern of resistance, creating new neural pathways and new quantum coherence patterns. Continue until you feel the shift, until the very circumstance that once sparked complaint now glows with hidden grace. Remember, the universe does not hear your wishes, your desires, your hopes. It hears your words and the frequency they carry. Speak as though every syllable has the power to shape reality, because it does. In every word lies a choice, to diminish or to magnify the good that seeks you. The truth whispers beneath Elsie's story. Your complaints become prayers answered with precision. Each grumble about delay stretches time like quantum probability curves bending. Each sigh about scarcity breeds more empty spaces in your experience. Yet this ancient wisdom contains liberation within its warning. For just as complaint is reverse prayer, gratitude becomes magnetic praise. The words you speak shape the current of your days, drawing towards you more of what you declare through quantum resonance. Consider Ruth, who shrank from praise as though it were an accusation. "Oh, it was nothing," she would say when someone admired her artwork, deflecting the energy being offered. Anyone could have done it, she'd insist when praised for her kindness. With each deflection, she instructed the universe to withhold its gifts, not consciously, but through frequency. Her dismissal of abundance became a barrier no blessing could cross because she was collapsing the wave function toward timelines where she remained small and unrecognized. The power that forms reality responds to acceptance as surely as a flower turns toward light. This truth revealed itself through Dean, whose barbershop became known as a haven of genuine warmth. When customers praised his artful touch with scissors, he would pause, smile, and say with quiet certainty, "Thank you, I agree." Not arrogantly, but as a statement of quantum fact, as a willing acceptance of the energy being offered. This simple act of receiving transformed his life. Day by day, Dean's acceptance magnetized more reasons for gratitude. New customers appeared as if summoned from the quantum probability field. Opportunities unfolded with natural ease. Others called it luck, but Dean understood. He had merely aligned himself with the flow of abundance through willing acceptance, through creating quantum coherence around prosperous timelines. What appears as fortune often springs from this subtle shift, the courage to receive. Each time you deflect a compliment, you tell the universe your cup is closed. You collapse the wave function toward timelines where you remain empty. Each time you accept with grace, you declare yourself worthy of more. You create coherence around abundant possibilities. The teaching holds clear. What you resist cannot persist in your experience. What you embrace multiplies through quantum resonance. Your words either welcome or ward off the very blessing seeking to find you. Here's a practice. When praise approaches, resist the urge to deflect its light. Instead, breathe it in as you would morning sunshine. Let the warmth of recognition settle into your being as you silently affirm, "It is safe to shine. It is safe to be seen." Feel these words of acceptance take root beneath your ribs, teaching your spirit the language of receiving. This ancient practice opens channels through which abundance naturally flows, because you're creating quantum coherence around timelines where you are valued and celebrated. There once lived a woman named Mabel who performed a nightly ritual of lighting a candle, seeking solace in its gentle glow. Yet even as the flame danced before her, casting warm light across her room, she would whisper, "This won't help anyway." Each time these words left her lips, the flame seemed to waver, as if reality itself recoiled from her contradiction, from the quantum static she was creating. Within this simple scene lies one of the universe's most potent truths. Your words must align with your actions. For contradiction nullifies creation through destructive interference. When you light a candle of hope while speaking words of doubt, you create a split current in the flow of manifestation. You're broadcasting two opposing frequencies simultaneously. The universe cannot serve two masters. It will honor whichever vibration speaks loudest in your heart, whichever frequency is most coherent. The power of unified speech and action reveals itself in the tale of Clyde, a school janitor whose wisdom outshone the floors he polished. Each morning, before crossing the threshold of the building, he would state with quiet certainty, "Today is orderly and kind." Just once. No more was needed. He didn't repeat it anxiously or question its truth. The declaration stood like a pillar of coherent light, and around it reality arranged itself accordingly, probability waves collapsing in alignment with his stated intention. Children's footsteps seemed lighter, papers stayed in neat stacks, and even the most chaotic days found their natural rhythm. Through Clyde's example, we glimpse the sacred mechanics of manifestation. Words spoken with wholeness, free from doubt's shadow, become immediate blueprints for reality. When your statement and your belief walk hand in hand, when there's no contradictory frequency, no force can resist their combined power. This truth extends beyond mere positive thinking. It speaks to the fundamental law of unified creation. Your word must be one with your intent, your action aligned with your declaration. When you speak with this kind of integrity, this kind of coherent frequency, even the smallest statement carries the weight of universal law. Here's a practice. Choose one truth you wish to manifest today. Speak it once with full conviction, as though it were already accomplished. Then move through your day as if this truth were as natural as breathing. Do not repeat it anxiously. Do not question its unfolding. Your role is simply to declare and then live in alignment with what you have spoken. The universe will respond not to the volume of your words, but to the unwavering clarity of your unified thought, speech, and action. To the coherence of your frequency. If this is touching something in you, if you're beginning to see how your words have been shaping your reality this entire time, then I invite you to subscribe. Not just to this channel, but to this frequency, to this space where we're remembering how to speak with conscious power. This isn't about consuming content. This is about joining a movement of people who understand that we are not victims of reality. We are creators of reality through the words we speak and the frequencies we broadcast. Now, what we're exploring today is just one transmission, one frequency in a much larger spectrum of conscious creation. If you're feeling this shift, if something is awakening in you around how language shapes the quantum field, then you're ready for the complete framework. In my book, Beyond the Frequencies, A Quantum Guide to Consciousness Mastery, I walk you through all 9 master frequencies that transform you from unconscious transmitter to conscious broadcaster, including the deeper mechanics of how your speech literally collapses probability waves and how to move from seeking reality to becoming the field itself. It's linked in the pinned comment below. In a secluded valley where ancient willows bent to touch clear waters, Ivy sat watching a river's ceaseless journey. Her mind churned with worries and plans, each thought crashing against the next, like waves against rocks. Yet before her, the river moved without effort or strain, accepting every stone and bend in its path with perfect grace. This simple observation unveils a profound truth about the nature of manifestation through speech. The universe responds not to force, but to flow, not to grasping, but to allowing. when your words emerge from a place of gentle acceptance rather than desperate need. They carry the power to shape reality with grace. Why? Because they're coherent. They're not contaminated with the static of resistance. Consider the river. It does not announce its strength or declare its destination. It simply moves in harmony with what is, and in doing so, carves paths through mountains over time. This is the art of surrendered speech. Words that flow from trust rather than strain. Words that carry no contradictory frequency. Edgar, a master violin maker, understood this principle in his craft. In his workshop filled with maple and spruce, he would softly murmur appreciation to each string he touched. "You know your song," he would say, fingers moving with reverent care. He never demanded perfection. He never rushed the process. Instead, he recognized the inherent harmony waiting to emerge, the quantum potential already present. The violins that left Edgar's workshop possessed a tone that brought tears to musicians' eyes. Players would marvel at the instrument's perfect resonance, unaware that their voice had been shaped by whispered gratitude rather than technical precision alone. The gratitude created coherence. The coherence transferred into the matter itself. This wisdom applies to every word you speak into the universe. When language flows from acceptance rather than anxiety, from trust rather than tension, it carries a power that forced speech can never achieve. Like water finding its path to the sea, gentle words aligned with trust will inevitably manifest their intention because they move with the current of quantum flow, not against it. The fault in most manifestation attempts lies not in insufficient effort, but in too much striving, too much force, too much desperation. Your words need not shout to be heard by the universe. They need only align with the natural flow of creation, like a river that knows its course without questioning each turn. Here's a practice. As evening approaches, find a quiet moment to practice the art of flowing speech. Imagine your words as water moving over smooth stones. Speak about your desires and dreams with the same effortless acceptance that a river shows to its path. Release the need to force or strain. Let each sentence glide naturally from your lips, neither pushing nor pulling at reality. Continue this gentle practice until you notice your thoughts beginning to flow in the same peaceful rhythm. Like the river, trust that your words will find their perfect way to manifestation because you're no longer creating resistance through desperate force. In the quiet of her room, Hazel sat each night with her journal, filling chapters with earnest desires. Her pen moved swiftly across paper, sketching dreams of abundance, love, and purpose. Yet each wish came tethered to a shadow of doubt, a whispered "but" that followed every hope like a second voice undermining the first. "I want to travel the world," she wrote, then added, "though it's probably impossible for someone like me." "I deserve love," her pen declared before adding, "but who would actually choose me?" The universe, in its infinite wisdom, recognizes only the language of certainty, only coherent frequencies. When you speak of what you desire while harboring doubt, you create a divided vibration that cancels itself through destructive interference. Like trying to sail north while steering south, mixed signals lead nowhere because they collapse competing probability waves simultaneously. Your words carry creative force, but their power lies not in the asking, not in the wishing, but in the knowing. When you declare a thing while believing its opposite, you have not planted a seed. You have scattered it to the wind. You've created quantum static. The universe does not file contradictions in its book of manifestation. This truth revealed itself through Cindy, whose work as a traveling nurse taught her the art of certainty. In cities and villages across the land, she witnessed how belief shaped recovery, how patients who spoke with certainty about their healing actually healed faster, how those who hedged their declarations remained sick longer. One day, she ceased her habit of hopeful wishing and began instead to speak in the language of completion. Each morning, she would say with quiet conviction, "Thank you that I am healthy, cherished, and supplied in all ways." She did not beg. She did not plead. She did not qualify her statements with doubt. She simply acknowledged what she chose as though it already existed in the quantum field, which it did, as a probability. Soon, her life began to mirror her declarations. Opportunities appeared, relationships deepened, abundance flowed. Not because she had asked nicely, but because she had claimed it, because she had created coherent frequency patterns around prosperous timelines. Here lies the subtle mastery of manifestation. The universe responds not to what you want, but to what you accept as true. Your words must match the reality you choose, spoken with the calm certainty of one who knows, rather than the anxious energy of one who yearns. When you declare, "I am blessed," while feeling unworthy, you have not spoken a truth. You've created a conflict, a contradictory frequency. When you say, "Abundance flows to me," while fearing lack, you have drawn a map that leads in circles because you're broadcasting both frequencies simultaneously. The ancient ones understood this. They knew that creation begins with acknowledgement, not request. To them, prayer was not petition, it was recognition. The quiet stating of what is, from a quantum perspective, already exists as possibility waiting for coherent observation to collapse into form. Here's a practice. This evening, find a quiet space where you will not be disturbed. Take 3 deep breaths to center yourself in the present moment. Now speak aloud the reality you choose as though it already exists. Say, "I am deeply grateful that," and complete the statement with your desired truth. Speak softly but with certainty. Let your words carry the weight of knowing rather than the lightness of hope. Continue reading your chosen reality aloud until you feel a shift, until the words begin to feel less like declaration and more like memory. Do not rush this practice. Let each statement settle into the atmosphere around you like dew settling on morning grass. When doubt rises, do not fight it. Simply return to your declarations with renewed certainty. The universe asks only for your clear acknowledgement of what is already yours in the quantum field. Your words carry creative force, but their power lies not in writing alone. It is in the unwavering certainty with which you speak them into being. When you declare a truth while your heart whispers doubt, you create ripples that cancel each other in the quantum sea. The universe responds not to what you wish, but to what you proclaim with conviction, with coherent frequency. Delia knew this truth, yet hesitated to voice it. She carried a smooth riverstone, its surface etched with the word hope, keeping it close as a silent talisman. But she rarely spoke her desires aloud, believing somehow that quiet wishing was safer than bold declaration. The stone remained merely a stone, its potential locked behind her silence, because potential without voice remains collapsed in superposition, never manifesting. The universe awaits your voice. It requires the key of spoken affirmation to unlock the doorways of manifestation. In his workshop on the edge of town, Frank understood this principle through years of patient crafting. Each table, chair, and cabinet that emerged from his hands carried more than mere wood and polish. As he worked, he carved words of joy, abundance, and harmony into the hidden places of his creations, beneath table legs, along the backs of drawers, under chair seats. Life must rest upon affirmative foundations, he would say, his chisel etching blessings into every piece, literally inscribing frequency patterns into matter. Those who purchased Frank's furniture often remarked how their rooms seemed to grow warmer, lighter, more inviting once his pieces found their place. Children would naturally gather around his tables. Conversations would flow more freely near his chairs. The wood itself appeared to radiate the intentions he had woven into its grain because matter holds memory, holds frequency. The law reveals itself. When you infuse matter with affirmed intention, you create anchors for manifestation in the physical world. Every object holds the capacity to vibrate with the frequencies you instill through conscious declaration. Your environment becomes a chorus of silent affirmation. Each blessed item a note in the symphony of your creating word. Here's a practice. Select one cherished object from your surroundings, perhaps a ring, a stone, even a simple cup. Hold it in your hands and feel its substance, its presence. Now speak your chosen intention clearly and with conviction into its form. Let your words carry the full weight of your belief as you declare into this object, I now infuse, and state your intention. Place it where you will see it daily, knowing it now serves as a physical anchor for your spoken truth. Trust that the geometry of sound has etched new patterns into its quantum essence, making it a living testament to your creative word. In a small house at the edge of town, Marjorie's attic held more than just physical clutter. Each dusty box and forgotten trinket bore witness to her endless litany of shoulds and musts. These weighted words hung in the air like cobwebs, binding her to patterns of obligation rather than sovereign choice. The voice of should speaks with authority borrowed from others, not the authentic power of your own spirit. When you say, I should organize this space, you cast yourself as servant to an external command rather than master of your own domain. Each must adds another layer of resistance to what might otherwise flow naturally from your wisdom. You're speaking from external obligation rather than internal alignment. The architecture of your speech builds the structure of your experience. This is not metaphor. This is quantum mechanics. Words of obligation construct walls of resistance while words of choice open portals to possibility. Notice how differently your body responds to, I must finish this task, versus I choose to complete this work. One creates contraction, tension. The other invites expansion, flow. Vernon discovered this truth in his modest garden. For years, he battled against what he called weeds, constantly muttering, I must pull these out, and I should keep up with the maintenance. His garden seemed to resist his efforts, growing more chaotic with each frustrated attempt at control. He was creating quantum resistance through his language. Then one morning, something shifted in his awareness. He began speaking differently to himself and his garden. I choose to tend this space today replaced I must weed. I get to shape this beauty took the place of I should trim these bushes. To his amazement, the very character of his garden transformed. Plants he had labeled as weeds revealed unexpected beauty. The work became a dance of cooperation rather than a battle of wills. This transformation wasn't coincidence. It was quantum mechanics in action. When you shift from language of obligation to language of choice, you step into your natural authority as a creative being. The universe responds differently to one who speaks from sovereign choice than to one who speaks from burden from duty, from should. Your words are not merely descriptive. They are creative forces that shape the very substance of your experience through quantum field interaction. When you declare, "I choose," you activate your divine right of conscious creation. When you say, "I should," you forfeit this power to an imagined authority, outside yourself. Here's a practice. As the sun rises tomorrow, take notice of every should and must that crosses your lips or mind. With gentle awareness, transform each one into a statement of choice. Instead of, "I should call my friend," say, "I choose to connect." Rather than, "I must complete this project," declare, "I choose to bring this work to completion." Notice how your energy shifts, how your movements become more fluid, how resistance melts into receptivity. This is not mere wordplay. This is the realignment of your creative power with your true quantum authority. Let each conscious choice be a key that unlocks another door to your natural freedom. Observe how your environment begins to reflect this shift in language. Like Vernon's garden, what once seemed to resist you may reveal itself as an ally in your creative expression. The universe mirrors back the authority with which you speak because you're broadcasting a different frequency entirely. The language you speak inward carries a hidden vibration, one that either amplifies or diminishes your creative force. In the mountain village where Rosie lived, her words flowed like honey on the surface. Yet beneath their sweetness lurked a subtle mockery. While she offered encouragement to others, her inner dialogue remained tainted with cynicism. The universe, being an impeccable listener, responded not to her polished phrases, but to the shadow frequency that lay beneath them. The power of manifestation flows through authentic channels. When your spoken truth aligns with your felt truth, when there's no contradictory frequency between them, reality bends toward your desire with swift precision. Yet when discord exists between outer expression and inner feeling, the universe perceives this misalignment as static, creating resistance in the field of creation. This wisdom unveiled itself through Amos, whose voice traveled across airwaves in a small valley town. Night after night, he sat before his microphone, initially focusing on crafting clever commentary and witty remarks. His listeners remained few, his impact limited. Because beneath the clever words was an empty frequency, a performance without authentic vibration. Then came the night when, faced with a power outage, he spoke from raw sincerity about hope in darkness. His words, though simple, carried genuine warmth that touched hearts across the valley. The shift was immediate. Letters poured in speaking of connection, of feeling truly understood. Amos discovered that authenticity possessed a magnetic quality that no amount of verbal sophistication could match. Because authenticity is coherence. It's the absence of contradictory frequencies. His ratings soared, not because his vocabulary expanded, but because his heart now infused each syllable with truth. This mirrors an ancient understanding. Words are vessels carrying the energy of their speaker. When you speak with divided intent, kindness on the surface but judgment underneath, you create ripples of confusion in the fabric of manifestation. You're broadcasting static. The universe responds not to the dictionary definition of your words, but to the emotional current that powers them, the frequency they actually carry. The law operates with precision. Emotion is the electricity that gives life to language. A simple thank you spoken with genuine gratitude holds more manifestation power than an elaborate affirmation recited with doubt, because the gratitude carries coherent frequency while the doubt creates interference patterns. Here's a practice. Before speaking, touch your heart briefly and breathe warmth into the next phrase, ensuring feeling travels before sound. Let this practice remind you that true power lies not in perfect phrasing, but in the authentic energy that carries your words into the quantum field. Within the depths of your being lies an invisible current that flows beneath every word you speak. This force, more potent than the syllables themselves, determines how the universe responds to your voice. When your inner feeling aligns with your outer expression, you unlock the sacred power of manifestation through quantum coherence. Consider the tale of a gentle soul named Beatrix, who served tea at a small cafe among ancient oaks. Day after day, she observed how customers would pour out their troubles, seeking solutions in her response. At first, she offered what she thought they needed, carefully crafted advice and wisdom. Yet something felt missing in these exchanges. The words landed flat because they came from her head, not her heart. One autumn morning, as golden leaves danced outside the window, Beatrix discovered a profound truth. Rather than rushing to fill the space with words, she began allowing silence to settle between conversations like soft snow. In these quiet moments, she noticed how people found their own answers, as though the pause itself contained healing wisdom. Because silence is not empty, it's the quantum field in its most potent state. The universe speaks through stillness. When you allow spaces between your thoughts and words, you create room for divine wisdom to enter. These moments of quiet become sacred vessels, purifying your speech and imbuing it with authentic power. Harold, a retired saxophonist who lived near the old theater, embodied this truth through his music. After decades of performing, he realized that the spaces between notes carried as much meaning as the notes themselves. The rests in his compositions weren't merely gaps. They were breathing spaces that gave life to the melody. Music, he would say, touching his worn instrument, is born in the silence between sounds. In quantum terms, the silence is where potential lives before collapsing into form. Just as Harold's music found its soul in the quiet passages, your words gain power when they emerge from stillness. Each pause becomes a moment of quantum gestation where intention crystallizes into pure expression. When you speak from this place of inner quiet, your words carry the weight of truth rather than the urgency of reaction. Here's a practice. Before engaging in significant conversations or making important declarations, pause to embrace the power of silence. Let 3 full breaths pass through you, feeling each inhale purify your intention and each exhale settle your energy. Allow your words to arise naturally from this still point within, like water bubbling up from a clear spring. Your speech will then carry the resonance of truth, touching others with authentic power rather than mere sound. Take these moments of quiet not as empty spaces to be filled, but as sacred chambers where wisdom gathers. Feel how each pause cleanses your words of haste and anxiety, leaving only what is essential and true. In this practice, you discover that sometimes the most powerful statement is the one that emerges from perfect silence. Through stillness, wisdom flows unimpeded. In those sacred pauses between words, the deepest truths emerge like stars at twilight. This ancient knowing guided Harold, who discovered that music's power lived not just in the notes he played, but in the spaces between them. His saxophone's melody became most meaningful when he honored the silence. the law reveals itself. Before creation spoke worlds into being, there was silence. Before the quantum field collapsed into form, there was potential. This same principle operates through you. When you allow stillness to precede speech, your words carry the weight of the infinite. Yet many resist this quiet space, filling every moment with sound, drowning the whispers of inner wisdom. They forget that silence is not empty. It is pregnant with possibility, rich with unborn potential, teeming with quantum probability. Your words become vessels of power when they arise from stillness. Like a lake at dawn, undisturbed by ripples, your mind in silence reflects truth most clearly. This is why those who master manifestation often speak less, but with greater impact. Less static, more signal. Loretta's journey illuminates this principle perfectly. Working at a small publishing house, she would voice her ideas in meetings so softly that they dissolved into the air unheard. Each time her suggestions were overlooked, frustration built within her like pressure in a sealed vessel. The frustration itself was creating interference patterns. Then one morning, something shifted. As others spoke over her yet again, that frustration transformed into fierce clarity. She stood and with unwavering conviction, presented her vision for a new literary series. The room fell silent. Within weeks, her project received full funding. Not because she had found better words, but because she had found authentic power, coherent frequency. The frustration had burned away the static. This transformation was mirrored in the story of Floyd, whose hands were always stained with motor oil, but whose heart beat with poetic rhythm. Every dawn, before the sun touched his workshop, he would recite his dreams of invention with burning intensity. His words carried such heat, such authentic passion, that they seemed to forge reality itself. Investors who had never ventured into his small town suddenly appeared, drawn by the pure force of his conviction, responding to the coherent frequency he was broadcasting into the field. These tales reveal a fundamental truth. When passion infuses your speech, when genuine emotion powers your words without contradiction, it activates dormant codes within the fabric of reality. Your enthusiasm becomes a key that unlocks doors previously invisible, because enthusiasm is high-frequency coherence. Here's a practice. As the sun rises tomorrow, stand facing the light. Choose one desire that burns bright within your heart. Speak it aloud with such sincerity that you feel heat rising through your spine. Let your voice carry the full weight of your conviction. This warmth is your signal, proof that the universe has heard your declaration and begun its response. Repeat this practice daily until manifestation becomes as natural as breath, because you're establishing a standing wave in the quantum field. In a small cottage by the sea, Bernice sat alone each evening, her thoughts sharp as thorns. Her words built walls instead of bridges, each phrase carefully crafted to protect old hurts, to keep herself safe behind barriers of resentment. The universe listened not to her stated boundaries, but to the pain beneath them, to the frequency of unhealed wounds. When you speak from unhealed places, reality cannot help but mirror that discord. Your words become guardians of ancient wounds, rather than creators of fresh possibilities. The law of attraction responds not to the surface of your speech, but to its roots in your heart, to the frequency arising from your emotional body. The truth stands eternal. Harbored hurt creates more of itself through quantum resonance. Each retelling of past wrongs sends ripples through the fabric of now, coloring your present with yesterday's shadows. Your words weave the tapestry of your experience. When woven with threads of resentment, they can only pattern more pain because that's the frequency you're broadcasting. Roland discovered this wisdom late in life. His voice once filled concert halls, but bitterness toward his former love had slowly strangled his song. Night after night, he rehearsed his grievances in silence until the weight of unforgiveness nearly silenced his music forever. The resentment was creating destructive interference in his creative field. Then came the night he chose differently. Instead of nursing familiar hurts, he composed a single song of gratitude for what had been. Though he never performed it, the mere act of creating beauty from pain shifted something fundamental. The universe responded instantly, not to sound waves, for the song remained unsung, but to the vibration of his transformed heart. He had shifted from resentment frequency to gratitude frequency. This reveals a crucial aspect of Logos. Healing happens first in the quiet chambers of intention. When you release the need to be right, to stay wounded, to keep score, something magical occurs. Reality brightens as if a cloud has moved from before the sun because you've cleared the interference patterns. Your words hold power to perpetuate pain or to transmute it into peace. Each time you speak of old hurts, you reinforce their presence in your now through quantum resonance. But when you choose to voice compassion, even silently, you alter the very substance of your experience. Here's a practice. Find a quiet moment and bring to mind someone whose memory carries charge. Softly whisper words of release. I free us both from this story. I return us to peace. Continue until you feel the subtle shift from resistance to relief. Let go of the need to justify your hurt. In that surrender, watch how life begins to paint with brighter colors because you've changed the frequency you're broadcasting. Now take a moment and comment below with one word. Just one word that captures the shift you're feeling right now. The transformation you're choosing. This isn't just engagement. This is you leaving your energetic signature in the quantum field. You're declaring your frequency to the universe. So pause. Comment. Let that word be your declaration. In a corner of an ancient library, Flora sat surrounded by towers of books that held centuries of wisdom. Though her mind brimmed with knowledge from countless chapters, her own voice remained a whisper, her insights locked behind hesitant lips. The universe waited patiently for her to understand that wisdom unspoken remains merely potential, like quantum probability never collapsed into form. The law of expression teaches that knowledge transforms into power only when given voice. Your gathered understanding, no matter how vast, stays dormant until released through sound. The vibration of spoken truth activates forces beyond the realm of silent knowing because voice collapses the wave function. Every thought you harbor contains latent energy waiting to be awakened by your voice. When you speak what you know, you bridge the gap between intellectual understanding and living wisdom. Your words become the bridge across which universal forces travel to manifest in your physical world. Earl, the night librarian, understood this truth through unexpected means. His stutter had kept him silent for years, his vast knowledge of literature trapped behind tangled speech. Each evening after the last patron left, he would stand at the empty aisles between towering shelves. There, in the sanctuary of solitude, he began reading poetry aloud. At first, his words stumbled and caught like autumn leaves in wind, yet he persisted night after night, letting verses flow through him. The books themselves seemed to listen, their spines standing straighter as his voice grew stronger. Gradually, his stutter smoothed into rhythm like a stream finding its natural course. He was creating new neural pathways, new quantum patterns through consistent practice. As his confidence grew, others noticed. The morning librarian discovered poetry groups forming spontaneously during his shifts. Soon Earl found himself hosting evening readings, his once halting voice now steady as he shared the beauty he had always known but rarely expressed. The universe responds not to what you know, but to what you declare. Your voice carries creative force that transforms potential into reality. When you speak your truth, you participate in the grand orchestra of creation, adding your unique frequency to the symphony of manifestation. Knowledge kept silent remains like unplayed music, beautiful in theory but powerless to move matter. Your voice is the instrument through which wisdom becomes alive, through which understanding bears fruit in the world of form. Here's a practice. Select a passage that resonates deeply with your spirit, a truth that quickens your heart when you read it. Find a private space where you can speak freely. Read this chosen line aloud again and again until the words feel as natural as breath. Let your voice grow stronger with each repetition, until the wisdom moves through you as if it were your own original thought. Continue until you feel the shift from recitation to embodiment, from borrowed knowledge to lived truth. In a small seaside town, Irene's kitchen held the warmth of a sanctuary. Her hands moved with practiced grace through familiar motions, kneading dough, stirring sauces, chopping vegetables. Yet beneath the rhythmic sounds of cooking, a harsher rhythm played, her own voice silently critiquing every action. "This will never be good enough," she whispered to the rising bread. "They'll notice every flaw," she murmured to the simmering pot. The universe listens not just to the words you speak aloud, but to the quiet commentary running beneath your actions. Every thought carries a vibration that infuses itself into your creations. When you prepare anything, a meal, a project, a gift, your inner dialogue seasons the outcome as surely as salt seasons soup, because matter responds to consciousness. This truth reveals itself in the way matter responds to mindset. Your hands may follow the same motions, use identical ingredients, yet produce vastly different results based on the energy flowing through your thoughts. The food you cook, the work you craft, the art you create, all absorb the frequency of your inner speech. Leo understood this principle through the natural fusion of his two passions. As both chef and orchestra conductor, he recognized that harmony required more than proper technique. In his restaurant kitchen, he hummed with gratitude while chopping vegetables, sang quiet blessings over simmering pots, and thanked each ingredient for its contribution to the whole. He was infusing the food with coherent frequency. His patrons often remarked that his dishes carried an inexplicable quality, a lightness, a joy that transcended taste. "It's like eating music," they would say, unknowingly touching upon the truth of his method. The food carried the frequency with which it had been prepared. The lesson crystallizes. Everything you create becomes imbued with the energy of your thoughts during its preparation. When you speak kindness into your work, that kindness manifests in the result. When you infuse your efforts with appreciation, that appreciation becomes a tangible quality others can sense because frequency transfers into matter. Ancient wisdom keepers understood this principle, performing rituals of blessing over everything from daily bread to sacred objects. They knew that matter holds the memory of the consciousness that shaped it. This is not superstition. This is quantum biology. Here's a practice. Before preparing anything today, Whether a meal, a presentation, or a simple cup of tea, pause to infuse the process with gentle words of appreciation. Speak softly to the ingredients or materials before you. Thank you for contributing to this creation. Feel how your words change the atmosphere around your work. Notice how blessing the process transforms both the journey and the outcome. Comment below and share. What's one phrase or declaration you've been speaking unconsciously that you now realize has been shaping your reality? Sometimes naming the old pattern is the first step to dissolving it. Subscribe now if you haven't already. Not just to stay connected, but to stay coherent. To stay aligned with this frequency of conscious creation. The more of us who embody this truth, the more the world reflects that reality. This is not about numbers. This is about field coherence. About collective consciousness shifting through individual practice. In the bustling streets of a weathered city, Evelyn moved silently between buildings with her cleaning supplies in hand. Each morning, she wiped away yesterday's grime from countless windows, yet her own view remained clouded by words of limitation. "Just another dirty pane," she would mutter, her cloth moving in mechanical circles. "Nothing new to see here." The universe, ever faithful to spoken intention, kept her horizons as smudged as her thoughts because she was collapsing probability waves toward limited timelines. The power of perception flows directly from the words you speak about your view. When you declare limitation, even the clearest glass becomes a barrier. When you affirm expansion, every surface transforms into a portal of possibility because you're shifting which timeline you're collapsing into. Your vision extends precisely as far as your declarations allow. Like a camera lens adjusting to light, your experience expands or contracts to match your verbal expectations. The window through which you view life is not fixed glass, but rather a living quantum membrane that responds to the vibration of your speech. If what you're discovering here is shifting something in you, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. You're supporting this frequency, this space where we remember our creative power together. Calvin discovered this truth in his early days of ministry. His small chapel sat empty most Sundays until he began his dawn ritual of standing before its modest windows, whispering with certainty, "Vision expands before me." He spoke not from desperate hope, but from quiet knowing, from coherent frequency. Soon, unforeseen connections appeared. A radio station offering airtime, a neighboring church seeking partnership, strangers drawn to his growing light. The windows of his chapel had not changed, but his declared perspective transformed what flowed through them because he had shifted his frequency, and the field responded. The law operates with mathematical precision. What you consistently say about your view becomes the frame through which reality presents itself. Every window you face, literal or metaphorical, adjusts its transparency according to your spoken expectation, according to the frequency you're broadcasting. When Evelyn finally understood this principle, she began addressing each window with renewed language. "Through you, I glimpse infinite possibility," she would say, her cloth moving in deliberate circles of appreciation. "Thank you for revealing clarity." Within weeks, her clients began requesting her services for special projects. One offered partnership in a commercial cleaning venture. Another recommended her for an art gallery installation. The same windows now framed vistas of opportunity, responding to her transformed speech. Here's a practice. Begin your day by standing before any window. Place your hand upon its surface and speak with gentle authority. Through this glass flows perfect clarity. My vision expands to embrace all good. Let your words resonate until you feel a shift in your perception. Carry this practice into every surface you encounter. Mirrors, screens, even the windows of passing cars. Watch how declaring clarity attracts experiences that confirm your expanded view. Drop one word in the comments that captures the energy you're choosing right now, the intention you're setting, the transformation you're stepping into. Let that word be your quantum signature to the field. Your declaration that you are no longer speaking unconsciously. You are speaking with power. When you speak correctly to yourself, you restore the original language of creation. Each narrative thread woven through this journey has unveiled fragments of that living code. The power of awareness as you notice your daily dialogue, the force of intention carried in your tone, the miracle of trust expressed through your declarations, and the grace of surrender when you release into knowing. Logos is not an external force you must learn to harness. It is your own deepest rhythm returning to conscious expression. It is the song your soul has always known, now remembered through mindful speech. The world around you is not a testing ground, but a faithful translation service, converting your inner dialogue into outer circumstance with perfect quantum precision. When you speak to yourself with tenderness and reverence, reality cannot help but bloom in response. Your words carry the original creative frequency that shaped worlds. You are simultaneously the storyteller and the story being told, the sound that initiates and the silence that completes. Your voice serves as the hinge upon which universes turn. It is the fulcrum between potential and manifestation. Once you truly honor this power, the unseen realms lean in to listen with infinite appreciation. They recognize in your conscious speech the same force that first whispered galaxies into being. You need not speak with thunder or pronounce cosmic declarations. The simplest truth spoken with authentic love for yourself carries more creative power than 1,000 hollow affirmations. For in that genuine self-blessing, you align with the original language of life itself, the logos that has been singing creation into being since the first quantum fluctuation birthed the cosmos. Consider returning to this video daily, perhaps each morning before you speak your first words to the world. Let it recalibrate your frequency, reminding you of the creative power you carry. And if someone in your life is struggling with their reality, trapped in unconscious speech patterns, share this with them. That act of sharing doesn't just help them, it deepens your own embodiment of these principles, creates synchronicities in the field, and amplifies the collective shift we're all part of. Subscribe now if this frequency resonates with you, not just to follow a channel, but to join a movement of conscious creators who understand that we shape reality through the words we speak. The more of us who embody this truth, the more coherent the field becomes, and the faster transformation occurs for all of us. You now hold the key. The question is, will you use it? Will you speak with conscious power? Or will you return to unconscious speech, letting the field collapse randomly around whatever frequency you happen to broadcast? The choice, as always, has been yours. But now you know. Now you remember. Speak correctly to yourself, and your reality shifts instantly. Not someday, not eventually, instantly. Because the field is always listening. The quantum substrate is always responding. And your voice has always been the creative force shaping your world. Now go. Speak with power. Speak with love. Speak with certainty. And watch as reality rearranges itself to match the frequency you broadcast. But here's what most people don't realize. There's a reason you can't connect to higher frequencies, to those elevated states of consciousness, no matter how carefully you speak. In my next video, I reveal the hidden interference pattern that blocks access to high-dimensional beings and quantum states, the one transmission error that keeps you locked in dense reality even when your words are perfect. The Arcturians confirm what we've suspected all along, and it's not what you think.